All my family flew 15 states over from New Jersey to California to attend my sister's unborn twins' gender reveal. A month later, none of them came to my wedding. They said the 2-hour drive would be too tiring. They didn't call or text after the ceremony. That silence lasted exactly 34 days. Then the next day, my phone filled with calls, messages, and voicemails from every one of them. What suddenly upended their comfortable assumptions? Keep watching to learn how my family reacted when they discovered, too late, that their own choices had closed the door on what they thought was theirs to use. I was standing at the edge of a rented beachfront cabana in Malibu, shading my eyes from the bright Pacific Ocean sun, when it finally hit me that the family's pecking order wasn't temporary. It was fixed. It was the second Saturday in June, and my extended family, my parents, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, and about half a dozen cousins, had coordinated flights from 15 states to be there for my younger sister Chloe's gender reveal for her twins. My parents spared no expense. First-class tickets for themselves, luxury oceanfront suites for relatives, and a professional planner who arranged an extravagant display that ended with a rented helicopter scattering biodegradable pink and blue confetti over the water while a string quartet played pop covers on the sand. My father, who often complained about his mild arthritis, practically sprinted through Newark Liberty Intel Airport to make a connection, and my mother spent 3 weeks agonizing over the perfect pastel designer outfit for the photographer Chloe had flown in from Los Angeles. I had also gone, buying an economy ticket and booking a modest Airbnb a few miles inland because I still clung to the tired hope that if I showed up for them, they'd show up for me. I spent the afternoon at the cabana's edge, watching my parents dote on Chloe and her husband Greg, whose cultivated charm barely hid his arrogance and precarious finances. Exactly 4 weeks and 2 days later, I was in the bridal suite of a quiet estate in the Pocono Mountains, facing my reflection while my phone showed 0 notifications from the people who shared my last name. It was my wedding day. The venue was a 2-hour drive from my parents' house in New Jersey, an easy route. Still, the 50 chairs set aside for my family on the left side of the aisle were empty. 3 days earlier, my mother had called with a rehearsed tone of mild regret to say the drive would be too taxing. "Your father's back is acting up, sweetheart," she said. "After that exhausting trip to California, we're drained." I pointed out they had flown across the country for an unborn child's gender reveal, but now claimed a 2-hour drive to my wedding was impossible. She sighed. "Please don't be difficult, Alina," she replied, shifting the blame with practiced ease. "Chloe's pregnancy is high risk. We needed to be there to support her. A wedding is just a party. We'll send a gift. You shouldn't be selfish asking us to risk your father's health for a car ride." By that evening, my aunts and uncles had their own suddenly synchronized excuses. A summer cold, a golf conflict, car trouble. It became clear a collective decision had been made that my wedding didn't merit their effort. They had always seen me as the practical, unremarkable child, the one who didn't demand attention and therefore didn't need appeasement. When I introduced them to my fiancé, David, a quiet, observant man in unbranded earth tones who drove a 5-year-old sedan, they dismissed him as ordinary, a match for my supposedly ordinary life. They asked no questions, showed no curiosity about his background, and treated him with the same polite condescension they would reserve for service staff. Neither David nor I corrected them. We understood their indifference reflected their self-absorption. I didn't cry in the bridal suite that morning. I didn't throw my phone or collapse under the weight of their rejection. The grief had been worked through long ago. What remained was a clear, hard understanding. I realized trying to earn unconditional love from people who treat affection like social currency was futile. I smoothed my lace bodice, picked up a bouquet of white ranunculus, and walked out with the certainty that my birth family had voluntarily severed the tie, and they didn't yet realize the mistake they had made about the man I was about to marry. The ceremony took place in the terrace gardens beneath willow trees. As I walked toward David, I kept my focus on him and on the friends and mentors who had actually come to celebrate, refusing to look at the empty chairs. The wedding was beautiful, intimate, and calm, free of the performative anxiety that usually followed any event involving my parents or sister. What my family failed to understand, through their own arrogance, was that the quiet man at the altar was not the mid-level corporate drone they assumed. David is the founder and principal managing partner of Horizon Ventures, one of the most aggressive, well-capitalized technology investment firms on the East Coast. His personal net worth made my parents' upper-middle-class posturing seem small. The estate where we were married, which my mother had assumed was a public park when I sent the address, was David's own property, a 70-acre private sanctuary he maintained with understated pride. We had kept our financial lives private, not out of spite, but as a boundary. I knew how my parents behaved. Had they known David's position, their indifference would have turned into an obsessive campaign to leverage his resources for their social gain and to fund Chloe's demands. They would have paraded him at club dinners, boasted about him, and pressured us to finance their desired lifestyle upgrades. Meanwhile, Greg's troubled tech startup, the one he boasted about at family gatherings, to mask operational problems, was bleeding capital and urgently seeking a Series B investment to avoid collapse. For 18 months, Greg had been trying to secure a meeting with the execs at Horizon Ventures, complaining about layers of gatekeepers blocking his access to the firm's leadership, a group that rarely sought publicity. Unbeknownst to them, the man they wanted to reach had been sitting quietly at our table, listening while they complained about his future wife's career. When David slipped a platinum band onto my finger and we were pronounced husband and wife, I felt a weight lift, the last tie finally cut after 3 decades. The reception that followed was warm and joyful, filled with people who knew and valued us. We drank champagne, danced under the stars, and celebrated without manufactured drama or obligation. Late that night, as guests left and staff packed up, David and I stood on the terrace overlooking the private lake. He held me and asked if I was all right with how the day had gone, given the glaring absence of those who were supposed to be closest. I leaned into him, looked over the grounds of our home, and spoke plainly. Their absence was the best gift they could have given me. It removed any remaining guilt about what I would do next. I had spent my life reshaping myself to fit my parents' expectations, minimizing achievements to avoid eclipsing my sister, and tolerating casual cruelties in the hope biology would force affection. By refusing to make a 2-hour trip to see me marry the person I loved, they made my place in their priorities unmistakably clear. 34 days after our wedding, Greg finally secured a pitch meeting at Horizon Ventures. He walked into the glass-walled boardroom on the 40th floor of the firm's Manhattan headquarters, confident his presentation would save his company. But when David closed the dossier, he calmly exposed the fatal flaws: an unsustainable burn rate, inflated user metrics, and no proprietary technology. Then he delivered the verdict. Horizon would not invest. Within 2 hours, my phone buzzed nonstop with calls, texts, and voicemails from my entire family. I answered my mother's call while sitting on our back porch with chamomile tea. Her voice was frantic as she begged me to make David save Greg's company. I let her speak until she wore herself out. Then I replied calmly, "My family is my husband and the people who showed up for our union. You said a 2-hour drive was too exhausting to support me. So you'll understand that walking into my husband's office to ask him to compromise his firm for a man who couldn't even RSVP to our wedding is too exhausting for me." Then I hung up, blocked their numbers, and ended every connection with the people who had treated me like an afterthought. 3 months later, Greg's startup filed for bankruptcy, and my parents drained retirement savings to bail out Chloe's mortgage. I learned an essential truth. Blood does not require submission. Sharing a last name doesn't bind you to people who only value you for what you provide. The best response isn't revenge, it's peace. The quiet, untroubled peace of building a full, meaningful life while those who ignored you stand outside the gates too late to reclaim their place in it.